by Kevin Garnett, and a very good pass by Perkins. Garnett flared Pierce, and they got the wide open three.
He scored the last 12 points for the Celtics. They got a 10-point turnaround here in this third period.
such condemnation worldwide. But before we go to that, politically, can that be explained as a means to pass a message?
It is
whatever the message is.
It is to me misguided. And it is not the best way to send across a message. Considering the fact that, in fact, let me tell you something. I don't think the international community of nations promote uncivilized groups.
Not at all.
I don't care. How can you imagine that a group of respectable members of the international community will find association, will find cooperation with such kinds of dissident activities? Politically, it's unacceptable.
Okay. Mr. Manyani Ekome, when you watch, because I don't think there's a Cameroonian of our caliber of social standing, even some other people who don't know anything, they know about this. When you watch that video, tell us how you feel.
Oh, believe me, Killian, I felt extremely bad, extremely sad, because I'm personally very sensitive to graphic images. And like the other panelists and all right-thinking individuals, so I do condemn in very strong terms, you know, that level of barbarism. We grew up not hearing about such things. And I think we have to, more than ever before, inhabitants of the northwest and southwest regions must give peace and love a chance. Remember, to end the war in the northwest and southwest, we need to first of all end the war in our hearts. And that's very important, because I think it is surely for that reason that African Union authorities, you know, couched as a theme for this year's edition of the African Day of Decentralization and Local Development, the contribution of local authorities to conflict prevention and peacekeeping in the continent.
Well, we are going to come to that.
Surely for that reason.
Yes, in our second topic, we are going to come to that. McDonald, you are a journalist. When you take your pen to write, to report, or to condemn such an act, what type of ink flows in your pen?
Honestly, it's really shocking. You know, what I watched in that video portrays the worst form of man's inhumanity to man. It violates the sanctity of human life. The dastardly act that I watched in that video and other videos that precede it are just so mind-boggling, are just so tear-provoking, terrible. And when a reporter would want to write or report on such a thing, it's but very normal that emotions may end up flowing into what you write. So, but I think it's something to condemn with the utmost vehemence possible. It's incomprehensible. It's really, really shocking.
Now, before we continue with this topic, the discussion on this topic, I will invite you to watch this report filed in from Boya by our Southwest correspondent, Guy Roger Nana.
The Makanga neighborhood in Muyuka subdivision will forever be associated with the gruesome murder of a struggling mother of two who was reportedly arrested by 3 unidentified men who later murdered her in cold blood without clearly explaining to her why she was given such a treatment. The mother of the deceased is yet to understand exactly why her daughter was killed in such cold-blooded manner.
It just come for you say, give you the first thing my phone, say give you your phone. It go take the phone, it can't give them. They say car will go, it will just up, they follow them. They pass so they go some quarter. So the one come there, they hide their collars, they don't bring collar me the same. They hide their collars. They take in how to go some quarter. They want to go tie for some stick. They say some people that will come out, they say no come out, if the guy do not no kill for you. Now that put for safety, but what about no in that time? Now that boy was that some they for safety, then 3 they've been there.
The senior divisional officer for FACO, Emmanuel Ngamba Ledoux, paid a visit to the bereaved family.
I've come to Muyuka today, first of all, to extend the condolence message of the head of state to the bereaved family of late Mrs. Tumazan, who was brutally assassinated a a couple of days ago by criminals pretending to be fighting for an unknown cause. These criminals are going to be prosecuted, and action has been undertaken to make sure that they are tracked down.
Meanwhile, the rest of the population here was reassured that the perpetrators of this act will be fished out and brought to book soonest.
As we said before, despicable, graphic images. Fortunately, we did not allow you watch them as naked as they were. When we watch from what we listened to in that report, the mother of the deceased said, the guys came like any other person, non-masked, and invited her where they went and tied her up. The first thing we question is, knowing the situation, as a matter of lesson, should we just follow anybody who comes and invites us?
Yeah, I think it is not prudent under the present, circumstances to follow whosoever comes and invites you. But more importantly, I think the population of the Northwest and Southwest must at all times collaborate with the forces of law and order if we have to bring an end to this level of barbarism. Because in all of those places, the guys who perpetrate such acts are known. They are known.
These ones even came on masks.
Yes, they even came on masks. It means that there are children who live just around the vicinity.
Yes.
So it is important to identify them.
Honorable Ingrid Francis, when you watch the images, you see cars drive past as they are dragging her to go tie her. In terms of collaboration you are talking about, should people watch such acts in fear of, I don't know what, take place in our country?
Well, that is what has been happening all over in the Northwest and Southwest, where these boys will come even in broad daylight and take you from your house in front of your family, and they go away with you. They will come and pick you up from a bar, drinking with friends, and taking you away, and then nobody reacts.
So what should people do?
Fear. Everybody's just afraid if you do this, they'll come for you tomorrow. And I think it's time for us to put aside this fear. 3 idiots would not come like that, and a whole population watch at them, take up a lady, and the first thing is they came without any matches, any weapons, took her away, and people were watching.
We mean she could
and
resist.
Because the people knew that these are those boys, if you do anything, they'll go and come back for you, they had to allow them to take this girl away. And the most interesting thing is, even after killing the girl, the sponsors came out with a video showing a penis and somebody lying somewhere on a bed and saying that that woman was killed because she cut the penis of the husband. You can imagine that.
Which has
trying to derail people's attention from, and it's time for our people to get up. Many communities have put up their vigilante structures, and they're actually handling the situation. We have many now arresting those boys and giving to the soldiers. If all can turn in that direction, then you weaken them.
McDonald, what should somebody do if you're even suspecting her case there were people around? If you suspect that they're coming for you, you should not give yourself over.
Well, the reality on the ground is so many people who are living in the 2 Anglophone regions at the moment are, I would say, in a situation of being between the devil and the deep blue sea. Because, like Honorable said, most of those separatist fighters are boys from the communities, are people who have been living with people in the communities, and so they know them, they know a lot of things about them. And so the extent to which they have succeeded in instilling fear amongst the community is in such a way that when you try to raise an alarm or you try to resist certain activities of theirs, then you become a target. But I think the underlying issue beyond all of this is, how did we get here and how should we get out of it? Because it doesn't just suffice to condemn. There have been condemnations from globally. you know, the diplomatic community, the United Nations has even condemned. A lot of people have condemned. But
and since you've raised that, that was actually going to be our next.
Okay.
So beyond
the condemnation, I think there is need for concrete action to be able to stop what is ongoing.
Yes.
And so many people have said it, and I mean, it's not me saying it.
Yes.
There is need for us to sit on the table of brotherhood and chart a way out of this crisis. And to be able to do this, there is need for inclusive, frank, honest dialogue, which is what has not happened yet.
It has not happened yet.
Dialogue is ongoing, government says.
Yes.
But there is need for that. If not, we will continue to lose our loved ones to such savagery.
Yes, we had the major national dialogue, which also calmed down the tension to an extent. It's being implemented. We are aware it's not worked completely because these things are still happening. Honorable, concrete action. What concrete action can be taken to make sure that this stops? Because not only at national level, because we're talking about international level, condemnation. So when they come and shout, oh, we've had so many condemnations from time immemorial on so many things. So what way forward in terms of action?
I think the way forward is it's time for national and international solidarity against this evil in the Northwest and Southwest. Not only words, because everybody will just come and write a piece of paper and say we condemn this. We want action.
What type of action?
And the type of action should be the perpetrators or the sponsors of these activities are not in our country.
They are known.
And they are known. Yeah. They are in some of these countries that are even condemning what they saw. So what are they doing to put them to order? Those of us back home, what are we doing to put these boys to order? Because they are already like loose cows. Cannons. How do we bring them back? We need to put a strategy, I think community by community, to see how we arrive at something to bring down for violence to stop.
Honorable, I cannot go without asking you this question because you, at one point, with your colleague, Honorable Mbile, you led a peace crusade. What happened to the peace crusade? It died? You could not do that?
Oh, no, it didn't die. You know, we came out and introduced it, and thereafter we had underground meetings. We did quite a lot in our team because it's quite a big team. We have all, you know, people from all aspects of the society in our group. And what we have been doing, we have been proposing. We write every time. Even now, we are working on a project with what has happened now to also submit.
The question is, before now, you went down, you went up, you went round, and it's still happening. It means you are like others, just writing and condemning.
No, there are a lot of things that happen because of the group. If we see the major national dialogue came, that was one of the first things we came out with. I think if we followed up in our first outings, we wanted dialogue, and we hammered on that. After that, a lot of consultations were done because we had to meet various actors.
Okay, thank you very much. You have to do
and
more.
I think we keep doing that because it's consultation. But now we need personal actions on the field to quell down the violence that is there. There must be ceasefire, definitely, and other actions to continue.
Doctor, we're talking about beyond condemnation, national, international. What concrete action can be taken so that this does not only stop now, it stops in the far future?
As an educationist, I think there is a problem of fear, which has to be demystified.
How?
And I want to invite, you see, we are talking about a ban of hoodlums. You get what I'm saying? And are we saying it's because of the fact that schools in some of these areas are not going on, where people can be given some values in them to make them feel civilized and human, modern people? There's a problem. There's also a problem I want to raise here, of which I'm inviting civil society actors, some of them who condemn and even, give positions that with the Ministry of Communication, there has been the means to be able to reconcile so that we have a common way forward, which is understandably in fighting out, referring to civil society organizations, and particularly some of these are good church groups.
Can we say that there is double dealing somewhere? We condemn, but we don't take action, and you know the gravity of all those?
It is the confusion, therefore. And there must be It's like in a school environment where there's no disciplinary department. And we expect instruction to take place without discipline. It will be funny.
Mm-hmm. If you agree that there's double dealing, Mr. Menyani, how can we expose or make sure that such do not happen?
Indeed, there is double dealing. And I think the major solution as far as the double dealing is concerned will be for those who call themselves our partners, those who call themselves friends of Cameroon, who are housing those criminals. They should be able to identify them and bring them to book. They know people who carry out, pro-terrorism campaigns on the internet. They know those who fund the terrorists. They have all the bank transactions. They should be able to identify them and then hand them to justice. That is why Interpol exists. So we should not be talking about things just from a theoretical perspective. We should be able to have our partners, the United States. Most of those guys are in the United States. Some are in Europe. We know those countries. So they should be able, if they actually have Cameroon at heart. It's true, I also understand that in international relations, there are no friends, there are only interests. But if they want the conflict to come to an end, they should be able to collaborate with Cameroon in a positive way, not just to sit and then make statements on Twitter or Facebook.
And just to add something there, just a second. A couple of years ago, American security came to the Northwest and pulled off a lady from the church and took her back to America because she committed a crime in America. Now there are people in America terrorizing Cameroon, and they too, reciprocity is not there. Can they also do that?
I think this problem has gone beyond the level of just, selecting or cherry-picking solutions, The solution to this problem doesn't lie with, in my opinion, doesn't lie with arresting those who are said to be sponsoring the boys on the ground. The solution to this problem lies with Cameroon. It lies with the leadership of Cameroon. And if they want to do that,
what do you mean?
Tomorrow they will. I can explain. The solution to this problem is dialogue, genuine dialogue. And when we talk about dialogue, we are talking about calling those who call the shots, even those who are abroad. Some of them are in Cameroon, most of them are abroad. Rather than arresting them, there is need for them to be invited to the table because they are the ones who call the shots and they control the boys on the ground. It's unfortunate what is happening, but that is a fact. Okay. So there is need for that. If not, we'll just be beating around the bush as far as this problem is concerned.
Thank you. I think you've ended that topic well because after everything, the end is always dialogue. Absolutely. So why don't we continue with the dialogue that started and take it to another level? With that, we are going to invite you to follow us as we move on to the next topic. But ladies and gentlemen, if you are watching us, if you have difficulties, if you are listening to us, because I know there are people who are listening to us, not actually watching, this program goes on video and audio in some areas of our country. You just connect to CRTV Web Facebook if you have a handset, and you can follow this program live. If you also have contributions, send to CRTV Web Facebook, and at the end of this program, in about 25 minutes, we're going to read them to you. We're going now to move on to the next topic. The next topic that we have today is decentralization, and the General Code, Decentralization Code was just signed. That was late last year, and it's supposed to be something that is going to accelerate the process. Are the actors, the stakeholders, ready for the daunting tasks? That's what we're going to discuss in our next topic. But watch this before we come with the debate.
To tell a tale in a language intelligible to local communities, use folklore or the drum language. Exactly what the government did to get the message of community participation reach elected officials and players in decentralization and local development.
The decentralization the president is talking about is a decentralization involving everybody. That's why it was important for us to talk about all these things here in Okola.
The population of Okola, 30 kilometers from Yaoundé, the target of this 10th African Day of Decentralization and Local Development, twinned with Africa's 3rd Civil Registration and Vital Statistics Day, which sought to drum up respect for the birthrights of birth certificates. In both ceremonies, the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development had a chat with grassroots populations on their role in guaranteeing conflict prevention in line with this year's theme, which centers around local authorities' participation in prevention and peacekeeping.
In addition to competences transferred by the 2004 law, the law of 2019 on the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities beefed up councils with 7 new competences, while at the same time upholding the principle of decentralized governance in Cameroon. The authority of the state at the local level is championed by the senior divisional officers. His scope of interference touches on the control of legality of operations and counseling. 8 areas of competence, including budgeting, loans, spending, development plans, amongst others, are submitted by mayors to the senior divisional officers, and in case of any flaws, these could be annulled or sent forward to the judge. But if the mayor is not satisfied with the decision of the senior divisional officer, he takes a litigation forward to the administrative judge for arbitration.
Yes, and the question we are asking in this second topic is decentralization. Are the stakeholders, call them actors, the vote holders, are they ready? Let me begin with you. You are the communication and public relations, in charge of public relations in the Ministry of Decentralization. When we talk about the stakeholders, help us to understand who are those who are directly concerned with decentralization.
Good question, Killian. First of all, if you permit me, I'd like to briefly explain what decentralization is all about. Decentralization simply means a process through which powers and resources are transferred from the central level to regional and local authorities to be exercised by locally elected officials under the supervision of the representative of the state. Therefore, there can't be any decentralization without the supervision of the state. Now, to come back to your question, who are the stakeholders of the decentralization process? There are 6 of them. At the first level, we have what we call the central authorities, who include the President of the Republic, who does policy formulation. He defines and formulates the policies. You have the Prime Minister, head of government, who oversees and coordinates the implementation of those policies. You have the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development, who is like, at the control tower, judging and gauging if the process is unfolding in its full dose. And then you have the Minister of Finance, who is actually the one funding the process. Added to him, you have the Minister of Economy, Economy and Regional
Economy
planning and regional development, who is in charge of the public investment budget. And then, of course, we have all other ministers involved in the decentralization process. I'll be very brief concerning the next categories. The next category is deconcentrated authorities, that is the governor, the senior divisional officer, regional and divisional delegates of ministries involved in the process. And then you have decentralized authorities, which include the municipal councillors headed by the mayors, and then there would be regional councillors to be headed by the regional president. And then you also have institutions or establishments which support the decentralization process. Here we'll talk about the Special Council Support Fund for Mutual Assistance, FECOM, and the National Civil Status Registration Office, BUNEC. After that, you have follow-up organs. There are 4 of them. You have the National Decentralization Council, chaired by the Prime Minister, head of government. You have the Interministerial Committee in charge of local services. You have the Interministerial Committee in charge of decentralized cooperation, and the National Commission for Local Finance. If you permit me, the last category, just 2 seconds, we call them other stakeholders. They include parliamentarians, that is members of the Senate and members of the National Assembly. And then we also have associations and ordinary citizens. Now, you come from an area, you come from a council area, you have the right to attend council sessions as an individual to give your point of view, just that your point of view will not be considered in the form of a resolution because you don't have a mandate from the population.
Doctor, you are a political scientist. When you listen to this, at one point I got lost because I see the central administration so much involved in it. Do we call that deconcentration?
That's decentralization.
Yes.
Yeah. That is exactly what it is. And
what is that?
Decentralization.
Yes.
Okay.
With so much of the central administration involved?
No, you can't say that. Mr. Killian, please. And this is where we have to educate our public. And from the way Mr. Kmer has described it, it's so elaborate and eloquent for everybody to be able to understand who has what to do where. Because let me tell you something. The new constitution we have is as a result of Anglophone pressure for federalism, which a political party in this country champions it. And the state, in order to be able to keep the unity of the country, went decentralization. Are we together? So which therefore means, if we're talking about the authority of the state, then it involves all those who are in the administrative machinery. Like he talked about the definition of the policy of the state in that domain by the head of state, the prime minister who coordinates action, then the various ministries and so on and so forth. That is where there is a meaning of governance, without which we will not be talking about governance within an entity. In fact, we'll be talking about some kinds of autonomous fondoms or villages or communities where each and every person has his own ability to be able to reason things. In fact, in that case, we'll not be talking again about a nation state. I want to hold there for a moment.
Let me just ask you, what exactly, I know that's what government understands by decentralization. In 30 seconds, is that exactly, how does government actually make people to understand apart from this? Because when you look at it, we were thinking that mayors and the regional councillors, they are going to be autonomous somehow, but from the description you have given, from this chain, they are far down there, and if the central administration does not want it to go, it will not go.
No, you should not look at it from the perspective of the central administration wanting it or not. You know, you mentioned the word deconcentration. Deconcentration is there to supervise decentralization. When we talk about autonomy of local authorities, that autonomy can only be practiced and implemented under the supervision of the state. Remember, it is a state. The state is like the owner of the country. The state is the proprietor of the country. Now, if the state decides that your council is going to be autonomous, that autonomy should be implemented under the watchful eyes of the state to ensure that policies are implemented in a coordinated manner, to ensure that there is no desire to secede, for instance, to ensure that education to ensure that students are going to school and being educated the same way students of other regions and areas are going to. So there is need for coordination, there is need for supervision. So there can be no decentralization without supervision.
Yes, Mr. McDonald, how do you read? Do you understand it the way I understand, and other people understand?
Well, I think
he has actually enlightened us.
Exactly what he has explained is he finally did it. He's explaining the setup, the machinery that has been put in place to ensure that the process of decentralization actually effectively happens. But the question now is decentralization actually happening the way it should? We have very fine text, the most recent being the law number 2019/024 of 24 December 2019
the general decentralization
on instituting the general code on local and regional authorities. Yes. Very voluminous, finely done text. But in fact, are the stakeholders which you mentioned, are they really ready to ensure that this process takes place? Government, to be specific. Is government not giving us the impression that they are trying to sell a goat and then at the same time holding back the rope? Because when you look at what is happening, as at now, the process is really, really not effective. It's in the process, but I thought that government should have done better than it has done now.
Up to this moment?
Yes, up to this moment. Because the powers and the resources, because the decentralization principle is all about devolving those powers and the financial resources to the local entities. Absolutely. To be able to propel local and community development.
Honorable.
But most of the ministries, I should say, have actually not devolved those powers. What is the problem?
No, you can't say that. You can't say that because as it is now, the various ministries have, transferred between 60 to 67 competencies to local authorities. Not only transferred those powers, but transferred the resources, okay? So, I mean, you should not look at decentralization with preconceived ideas. It is a process that is in place. It is unfolding at the required dose, and I think as a journalist, you work on those questions every day.
Honorable, you have been the representative of the people in the National Assembly for so many years. Those are people you represented. Do you actually see decentralization from the way we have understood it here, or it is still a far-fetched idea in terms of touching the local community?
Yeah, the common man will reason decentralization in his own way. And I think I was part of this law in Parliament. We discussed it and we asked a lot of questions to the ministers to make sure they explain to us. And some of your concerns here were also handled, where it's not just giving a goat and holding the rope, But if you send the goat to go and eat, you don't control where the limit should end. You enter into somebody and will stray into somebody's farm and bring you problems. So you must control it. There must be some control mechanisms for our councils because we are living in a country. And if you want to give autonomy to the local and regional authorities, you don't just dash them everything and say, take and do whatever you want to do. So there must be that control mechanism where the administration is there now to put some speed brakes. Else, many of our representatives will go wild, and then the implementation will become a problem. I do believe that if well implemented, Cameroon will be a paradise not long from now, because if it will give the local representatives, that's the mayors and the regional presidents, the audacity to prove their worth, because you wanted power. Okay, that's the power given to you.
Use it.
Use it.
Thank you.
And develop your area.
Thank you. He's talking about if. That if is underlined. He has said it once, twice, and 3 times in his speech. Yes. Which means that he is still looking forward to seeing it happen. This is competent. We have competencies transferred to local authorities. Yes. Most of them mayors, regional councils, and then, as you say, the congested authorities. Yes. Some of them, I should say it here, mayors and others, they don't have the technical capacity. They don't have the local public service trained staff. We have NASLA that was newly created to handle all of that. But we don't have that. How is that going to make it work without people who know all of that?
Yes. As far as the human resources of local authorities are, is concerned, we have come up with what we call the local public service, and you did mention that. What is the local public service? The local public service is an idea, it is a principle, it is a way of looking at council management in such a way that the council personnel, workers of local authorities are better organized and managed, In the General Code of Regional and Local Authorities, it has been dealt with in Section 22. And what is going to happen concretely in the local public service? You come from a council area, definitely. Yes, Your mayor might write to the general manager of CRTV, Mr. Charles Nongo, to say, look, within the framework of the redynamization, or I want to reinvigorate the communication unit of my council, I wish to have Mr. Nda Kilian on secondment in my council. And if you accept, the general manager of CRT will send you to your council. So there's going to be a lot of mobility of human resources and flexibility. With that, we hope to see our councils getting more, better, and highly qualified staff in order to do the work they're expected to do. Because decentralization is not just about transferring competencies and resources. It is also about using those competencies and resources in a manner that will bring local development to our country, you know, because the end point of decentralization is local development. So if we give you the competencies, we give you the means, and you are not properly trained, you know, to manage those two, there will be no local development. So the local public service is aimed at solving that problem. And the Minister of Decentralization and Local Development, His Excellency George Elanga-Obam, is working already with his counterpart of the Ministry of Public Service and Administrative Reforms to see into it that the necessary laws and legal instruments needed to give, you know, a foundation, a background and stamina to the local public service are done within the shortest possible time.
Doctor, politically, if it happens the way he is painting this very nice, good picture, if it happens politically, how is the country going to look like?
Political administratively?
Yes.
Powers would have been devolved from the central levels to the local areas.
Yes, I'm talking in terms of the tensions we have left and right. To be very frank, there are people who say if we had decentralization implemented before now, we will not have the problems that we have, the crisis we have in Northwest, Southwest, because it has been delayed. We have people from the far north who are saying they are even asking for some other things. And people from the east, from the south, from all other parts of the country are saying we need some special treatment because the decentralization is not working. I'm not specific, I'm asking, if this actually happens, how will the political scene in terms of quelling down tension look like in our country?
First and foremost will have been a solution, and it will create some form of national solidarity. Where today some people feel they ought to have been in charge of, you know, the governance of their communities and so on. But then, like Mr. Kmer has rightly said it, how could that have been possible if we lacked the competencies and the resources that could stimulate local development? They would have been talking about a new form of governance. Are you getting me? In a polity that is Cameroon. What kind of governance? A kind of governance where devolve competencies and abilities, and it will stimulate national development in the sense that it invites everybody to be interested. Not like you feel like if you do not go to ENAM, then you don't have a place to participate in national development or in the development of your community. If you do not leave ENS and so on and so forth. Like he has rightly said, it is incumbent on the mayor of the area to use what we call decentralized local cooperation to touch those other national services and institutions or corporations of the state to bring development. Not only at the national level, it could get to the point of international cooperation. Okay. And I think that is one of the missions of his ministry.
Absolutely.
Yes.
Now, yes.
Let me just
pick on that, yes.
Yes, it's very important, but quickly, let me just go back to what he said. He talked about ministries devolving about 60 to 70% of
competence.
60 to 67. Yes, but why are they holding the remaining 30-something? Because the law talks about the powers. It doesn't say some powers. You know, I think it's a process. And let me just land. It's important. I'm not blaming. I mean, last month, the minister of your minister made a balance sheet, presented a 6-month balance sheet of the implementation process of the law that was passed in December last year. Yeah. It wasn't so good, even though 6 months is so short a time. But I think that there is need for the will. You know, the central government needs to develop that will to be able to let go some of those critical powers that the local entities need to be able to develop. Because most of them are still complaining. A lot of mayors are still complaining. A lot of local authorities, as for now, mayors are still complaining. However, I think that there is need for that political will to be able to fully, for it to be fully given down so that it actually happens.
We already have that political will, and that is why we have
and it should be speedy too.
Code of Regional and Local Authorities. Point number one. Point number two, it is wrong and biased for you to say a balance sheet was presented and it was not too good. You can't say that.
No, it's not me saying it was clear. It wasn't too good. The minister himself confessed that there were a lot of speed breaks within the 6 months, one of them being COVID. So it's not me saying.
No, listen, he was talking about, you know, the legal instruments which have to be put in place to ensure that this general code on regional and local authorities actually takes effect. However, you must understand, and I said it before, decentralization is a process. You don't get up one day and you say, I'm doing decentralization.
We started talking about this 25 years ago, Mr. Kmer.
That's why it's a process.
And that's why we are standing, it looks like we are standing on the same spot.
Far from that.
Decentralization was envisioned 25 years ago, and we're in 2020.
No, excuse me. Yes.
And we are still talking about it being in a process.
No, it was envisaged. Now the implementation stage has started.
Of course.
And it has just started, a couple of months back.
Yeah.
And to me, I'm very positive with the way government is handling it. We know the setbacks. If not of COVID, maybe the evaluation within this period would have been really good. And also the conflict in the Northwest and Southwest.
Yes, that's what
that implemented in the Northwest and Southwest. That has dampened everything.
Absolutely.
So implementation will also be a problem. Yes. Let peace come back to the Northwest. You will see the miracles that will happen.
Okay.
And I do believe that.
Now, yes.
I will also want to beg to say, by mid-1986, 85, Cameroon suffered a major economic crisis, which was a recession economically. Mm-hmm. And if we are talking about transferring competencies and means, we are talking about material and financial resources. Okay. Now, today we are talking about a confusion that exists in the Northwest and Southwest. And today, our economic performance is kind of like indicating that we have to come out from the doldrums. All of this has to do with means. Mm-hmm. And if any realization, which is a good one, is a good job of construct, then automatically I don't think local development will just appear like a miracle.
Thank you.
It's a process.
Yes, we know of one of the fall-offs from the major national dialogue, the special status. Yes. Where is the special status in the decentralization process?
Yeah, that's good. The special status, like you said, is the brainchild of the major national dialogue, which was convened by the President of the Republic and chaired by the Prime Minister, head of government. Now, what is the special status? I would say the special status is a collection of privileges given to the Northwest and Southwest regions. And by regions, I'm not talking about the geographical regions. I'm talking about the decentralized regions. So those privileges are given to the Northwest and Southwest in a bid to help those regions preserve and maintain their linguistic, cultural, and historical,
heritage.
Good. So what is the special status? Point number one, to understand the special status, you have to know that the special status cannot be visible if regional elections have not taken place. Mm-hmm. Point number one. So it does not concern councils. It rather concerns the Northwest and Southwest regions. Point number two, second consideration. Unlike the 8 other regions, in the Northwest and Southwest regions, you are going to have 2 houses.
Chief?
No, not of chiefs. You are going to have 2 assemblies. No. That is the House of Divisional Representatives made up of 70 members, and the House of Chiefs made up of 20 members. 70 plus 20 will give you 90, because the law on regions says every region in Cameroon will have 90.
That's correct.
Good. So in the Northwest and Southwest, we are going to have 2 houses, including the House of Chiefs, whereas in the other regions, you will not have the House of Chiefs. Okay. Third consideration about the special status. The overall idea behind the creation of regions is to jumpstart and stimulate economic development. So in the Northwest and Southwest regions, you are going to have 3 commissioners who will be in charge of promoting that. And who are these commissioners? You have a commissioner for economic development, economic affairs. You have another commissioner for public health and social affairs. And then you have a commissioner for education, culture, and sports. Okay. These commissioners are not going to be found in the other regions. And perhaps to conclude, in the Northwest and Southwest regions, you are going to have what we call the Public Independent Conciliator. This is going to be an independent authority who will receive disputes from users and propose amicable settlement, which means that I come from Beya, for instance. I am free to contact the Public Independent Conciliator and tell him that I was in XY public service and I didn't receive the treatment I ought to have received. And he's going to put in place measures and mechanisms to correct that.
Thank you very much. Doctor, we all listened to him. Truly very interesting. When you follow that, don't you see there's a communication problem? Do the people back there understand the way you've explained?
That is why we are here to communicate.
You have to, not every person watches us here. Do you have a communication plan to go down there?
Absolutely. You know, we live in an era where information and communication technologies, you know, particularly social media, has taken hold of everybody. And that is why the Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development is extremely present in social media. If you look, if you follow us on our Twitter handle or our Facebook account, we communicate on these issues every day.
I agree.
Yes.
I'm asking, I think other people believe me,
yes,
that you need a campaign to the field.
Definitely, there is always room for improvement.
Okay.
There is always room for improvement.
I think in curriculum also, considering the fact that NASRA is going to, you know, so much is going to be taught, and people now come to understand what it means by local management and administration, which in fact were domains that before never existed. And I want to come to tell you something. Some headmasters were prominent in our regions to have reason to become mayors, right? And issues of school administration and running a council area, they don't very much meet the same. And today we are talking about NASRA being able to provide the human resources, through which people are going to go to NASRA and graduate from there with a lot of knowledge in local management and administration, and which in fact will constitute the other element of academic and intellectual development in the individual, which will give a different perception of what we think about local development and regional management. Thank you.
McDonough, is that answering your doubts about how fast it's going now, given that we have NASLA?
Well, NASLA was just born. You know, NASLA is just a new creation. I think like I said before, there's need for us to fast track this process, because it's been dragging on for a very long time. You talked about the regional councils. I think that's one important entity that needs to be put in place, you know, to fast track the decentralization machinery. Until that happens, then we may not really enjoy the full dividends of the process. And your concern is very genuine about communication. So many people on the ground who are supposed to be the potential beneficiaries of the decentralization goodies, in quotes, are really not aware of what they even are entitled to. So there's need for that communication. And well, it's a process, but I think it should be fast-tracked.
Honorable, last word. Let me ask you a question rather. Mm-hmm. If the decentralization is fast-tracked, as he's saying that it's actually fast-tracked, could it solve the problems we have, the crisis, and the problems in other regions? Briefly, we don't have
considering that this aspect, especially that of the regional councils, came in as a birth child of the national dialogue, which was aimed at trying to see how to solve the problems in the Northwest and Southwest. We are very optimistic that with the coming of the regional council and with the coming of the special status, everything will go quite well. Also, the NASDRA that has been created, I think it should also be given special status to Northwesterners, to Northwest and Southwest, in order to build up the capacities and send them down to the field for
NASLA is national. We don't have that time again. When I look at my wristwatch, we don't have time again. It's just to thank you, gentlemen, for accepting to come for this debate today on two topics: barbarism in Cameroon, beyond human rights condemnation. Something should be done beyond just condemning. And then decentralization. Are the major stakeholders ready? You have heard the discussions here, the debate was hot. And we had as panelists Dr. Kisife Derrick. We had, he's a political scientist, University of Yaoundé Toussoua. We had Mr. Manyanye Kmer, Communication and Public Relations Officer, Ministry of Decentralization and Local Development. We had Honorable Ingme Francis Abi. He is a politician expert in human rights affairs. We also had you, McDonough, a colleague of Sopicam, Cameroon News and Publishing Corporation. McDonough Ayang, I want to thank you very much for coming.
It's a pleasure.
And thank you also for giving us your time. Watch this program, every broadcast Monday afternoon, 3 p.m. You can also watch it CRTV web, Facebook, after the broadcast at your convenience. Thanks and have a nice time.
Because of the crisis, my business doesn't work anymore.
Sans boulot, payer mon loyer devient très compliqué.
Avec la rentrée des enfants, je ne sais pas comment faire.
Vraiment, comment rebondir?
Mola, Igo Beta. MTN fait 10 millionnaires chaque semaine jusqu'au 30 septembre.
Ah bon?
How I fit do?
C'est simple. Atteins ton objectif pour saisir ta chance de gagner.
Mon objectif?
Oui, tape étoile 160 dièse pour savoir. Quand tu l'atteins, gagne jusqu'à 100 000 francs CFA de crédit de communication directe. MTN à vos côtés pour rebondir.
About to start, you know what time it is, and of course you know that your afternoon is going to be special. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to Tam Tam Weekend. Today on the program, just like every other Sunday, we bring you bliss, we bring you glamour, we bring you entertainment in all of its forms. Today we are going to be showing you something particular. It is a bit mysterious, a bit mischievous, but at the same time it has some positive connotations, if we should put it like that. Last week we showed you something on how to rear your dogs, your pets in the house. But today we are talking about dog eating on the program, so don't go nowhere. I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag, but be sure that in the course of the program you're going to know lots about the mystery surrounding the sales and eating of dogs. But that notwithstanding, today on the program we have lovely people here, and when I talk about lovely people, I talk about music, I talk about dance, and of course entertainment. The first of them is the very mighty, very big, we call him le très très grand Général Amapiero. He's in the house with us this afternoon. Good afternoon, Amapiero. Welcome to Tam Tam Weekend. And besides Amapiero, we also have another beautiful lady who was here some time back and who graced the stage of Tam Tam Weekend. She's here this afternoon to talk about something very peculiar. I am talking about Edwige Soreille Kenembeni. Good afternoon, ma'am, and welcome to Tam Tam Weekend. But before them, I am not alone. As always, I have my partner in crime who is standing right by. Good afternoon, Ivo. How are you?
Partner in crime?
Yes, partner in crime.
Partner in crime.
Yeah.
Wow. I'm just wondering the number of crimes we've committed together.
A lot. But all of those crimes are meant to keep our public up to date.
Which means after the studio, we have to go straight to the police station.
No, we commit all of those crimes here first of all.
Voilà, merci à vous, chers téléspectateurs, et merci d'être sur la CRTV. Hein. Bon après-midi à toi, Eleanor. Je te trouve très sexy. C'est très rare. Je pense que c'est la première fois que je te fais cette déclaration sur le plateau Tam Tam Weekend. Je pense que tous ceux qui sont là, je n'ai pas dit toutes celles qui sont là, tous ceux qui sont là peuvent le constater. Vous êtes très sexy et glamour. Vraiment là, rien à dire. Le choix a été très bien fait. Je ne sais pas si c'est vous, c'est messieurs, mais bon, dans tous les cas, les téléspectateurs doivent être très heureux de voir Eleanor Bisson dans cette très belle tenue-là. Alors cela dit, c'est un dimanche spécial, particulier, en dehors du fait que nous aurons justement ces deux artistes et des reportages. Nous allons rentrer dans l'histoire pour parler de cette histoire du Cameroun qui a débuté le 8 juin 1990 et qui s'est achevée justement le 1er juillet de cette année-là. Vous comprenez que le 1er juillet, c'était ce match Cameroun-Angleterre avec la victoire au finish de l'Angleterre qui mettait un terme à la participation camerounaise à cette Coupe du Monde qui s'est déroulée en terre italienne. Ils étaient 22 héros qui sont restés dans l'histoire. C'est vrai qu'il y a 3 qui nous ont quittés aujourd'hui. On a Benjamin Massing, Lupon Fédé et bien sûr tout récemment Stéphane Tato qui était d'ailleurs le capitaine de cette équipe, de cette génération-là. Nous avons la chance, le bonheur, l'honneur et surtout le plaisir et le privilège de recevoir des anciens lions qui restent toujours des lions indomptables parce que des lions, quand on est lion à vie, hein, il faut le dire. Je vais déjà vous demander